You are listening to the Practicing the Art of Small Business podcast with Shannyn Merlot and Julie Parker. Join their conversation about business, leadership, and the self-awareness journey to greater success.
Welcome, Julie and listeners, to episode number 23 of Practicing the Art of Small Business. Julie, how are you?
Shannyn, I'm great. Really great. And part of the reason I'm great is because time seems to fly. We're at episode number 23 already, and seems to have come so soon after episode 15.
It's the craziest thing. So for those who are lost in a time warp and thought, well, hang on, I was just listening to episode number 15, which was all about having difficult discussions, and somehow I've jumped to episode 23. And if maths is my strong suit, I should know that there are 8 episodes between 15 and 23. Yeah, Julie's counting out for those who are not watching. Thank you. Look at me doing maths. But what Julie and I decided is that we wanted to record this episode. It's the 7th of July, 2021. And we want to talk about planning because it's the start of the new financial year. But how do we serve our audience when we want to talk new financial year and planning if we release it in 16 weeks' time, given that we release this fortnightly? For those who are tracking, that's 23 minus 15 plus 8 times 2.
That is so awesome. And because of the fact that we have planned so well, we have so many episodes in the can, as they say, that we thought, why not just disrupt the whole thing, drag this one in immediately, post it immediately, and then it's actually relevant for people in the month of July.
Absolutely. We're mixing things up because we can, and we like variety, and there are no rules. And that's one of the things about running your own business, that you can make the rules up as you go. So
that's it. And this is a small business entrepreneurial podcast. And I heard a great thing around what an entrepreneur is, and they just have they are constantly striving for freedom. So they don't want to be within the constraints of somebody else's business and dreams and agenda. They want to really express their own freedom. So we are expressing our own freedom in our podcast as well.
There we go.
Let's just jump into planning. So we've come in with zero planning for this particular and preparation for this particular podcast, which is our want, that's our habit. And what I would like to ask you, Shannyn, the month of July comes around. Where does your mind go with your business? How do your discussions go with your clients? What does July mean to inspired outcomes?
The answer that perhaps you want me to give and that others might want to hear is that we go deep dive into planning. However, it actually depends on the client, because I do find that a lot of clients do most of their planning with me calendar year, which is interesting. We still do some financial planning and we still discuss things at this new financial year, but I actually find that the enthusiasm for thinking long term for my clients happens more around the calendar year. Could be wrong. Does your clients?
You said there were no rules, and so you can't be wrong, Shannyn. It sounds fantastic.
Do your clients get excited about new financial year, or is it more of a
my advice to them with every July is now is the time to assess your expenses for the coming year and make sure you do a fee increase or product price increase to make sure you're in the coming year remain viable and getting whatever profit margin on top that you would like to get. And that in itself is a constantly evolving thing that I find with clients. When a dental practice is in its infancy and they've just opened their doors up, you really are, and I think the same can be said with many businesses, you just need people coming in, buying your services so you can pay the bills. And so in a dental space, we just need bums on seats. We need bums on those surgery seats. That's what we need. But then as you evolve over the years, you start to go, well, now we're busier. So now we can be a little bit more selective with who we're seeing. And we can start to really build out a patient experience that's going to attract and keep our ideal patients, our avatar patients, if you like. And it may include people who are more cosmetically minded. It's always a good thing from a dental perspective that you're trying to appeal to those who are loyal long-term members of the, that come in for every 6 months for their checkups and all the rest of it and hold their oral health as a high priority. So you can start becoming a bit more selective around the people that are coming in and their bums on seats. Be selective about the bums that are on your seats. And the fee increase every July for me and practices that I speak with is a lovely chance to sit back and just think, okay, who are we trying to appeal to? Every time you do a price increase, if it's a substantial price increase, you will lose some people, but that might be okay if it's in line with your plans for growth, because it just means that we are further filtering down who comes to the practice, and so we're just in a majority way seeing the patients that we love seeing, and so we can afford to provide that wonderful service that they want and demand and desire, because we have been able to increase the fee list to accommodate the expenses of the wages of these much more highly skilled, highly experienced team members to provide all of the things that we want to provide.
Right. So what I'm getting, that sounded a bit of a dismissive right.
It is right. Well, if that's why you do it, I don't do it like that at all.
Right. Wow. This is an awkward podcast.
Works for you, fine.
No, my right was right. So what I'm getting from you is that a lot of the planning from your side is really financially enabled. So we were going to talk to planning for our podcast as a do it in situ, as opposed to this is instead of the talking the talk, we're walking the walk in this podcast. Is that right? Oh gosh, Julie, good luck with the edit on this one.
Sitting the sit.
Sitting the sit, walking the talk, talking the walk. So we were going to do that, but given that we're not, this isn't about a financial, it's not really, we're not paying, people aren't paying for this yet.
Yet. We're not whittling down our audience yet.
Not yet. You wait though. It will become exclusive. A lot of what you were talking about there, Julie, was the financial side of the planning, and it's a good time to do it, although it does depend. As I said, I've got a number of clients who do their financial planning actually at the start of the year, the calendar year. There's no wrong or right here. At the end of the day, you're an entrepreneur, and as long as it serves your purposes, you do it, you do you. As long as you're doing something, I think is the point. So whether you're doing financial planning around this time or not, what's the next step around planning that we should focus on, particularly around this time of year? What do you think the next step is, Julie? And what should we do as an in situ with this podcast?
I think the podcast is wildly different to my approach with anything else. This isn't, as you say, this is not a money generator, so it requires a completely different approach and mindset around it. I think the January and the July of every year are a lovely opportunity just to reflect. What goals did I put in place in January? Are we on path in July? And those goals could be anything. It could be financial. It could be I want to get more time with family. It could be I want to get a stronger team together. I want to get better team training happening. I want to attract more clients. The goals could be all around mind, body, spirit. I want to read more, learn more, go out on more walks and contemplate more. It could be all sorts of things. And so I think the January and July are always good times. A 6-month period is a long enough period that we should have really got some traction on what we had desired months before. And Tony Robbins has a lovely saying, I overestimated what I could get done in 1 year and underestimated what I could get done in 10. And so just the process of reflection is useful, but certainly the process of reflection and establishing a plan for the coming 6 months, I think, is a good thing.
Okay, so if we want to talk the talk Walk the talk. I'm walking the walk, aren't I?
Walk the talk.
I walk the talk.
Putting in action what you're talking about.
Okay. So
Not as easy as the maths, the English.
depends on the day, I think. So then, Julie, how's about we reflect on how this year has been, or what we wanted to achieve up to this point, and what's working and what's not working, perhaps, and we can go from there, and we can then sort of look at what we want to change or implement or adjust for the second half of the year.
That sounds super.
Okay. So this year, we've had a branding change. That was exciting.
We have had a branding change. That's true. That happened around episode 15. No, earlier than that. No, 15. Episode 15 came out with the new branding. So that was exciting. That felt like we were growing up a little bit.
Yeah. And so if you haven't seen our YouTube channel, you'll see some wonderful images of Julie and I there. We had a lovely photography session with Emma Carr Photography, which was fabulous.
Emma, even.
Yeah, which was nice and fun. So that was great. I think that I love our Wednesdays. We Julie and I have Wednesdays in the diary to catch up and to talk through. And to be fair, we don't tend to plan our episodes. We started off the podcast we had 6 sessions that we were going to record, and we had them all planned out. And it was a little bit stilted, wasn't it? We actually recorded most of them, but ended up throwing most of them out, didn't we? Or we started and it was just awkward and stilted, and we ended up.
We re-recorded our intro, the very first one, about 3 or 4 times. And then I think we started moving more toward the better done than perfect, if I could read that title from one of our episodes.
There's number 5, the marketing versus getting stuff done.
Getting stuff done. So, yes, episode number 13 was better done than perfect. And that's certainly the case with podcasts. Nobody needs them to be totally polished, and it would be such a time-intense project to be on if it did need to be absolutely perfect every time. There'd be re-recordings, and in the re-recordings, I know that with my work with dental practices, and I record presentations every week for my dental clients, the inclination to re-record I have completely dismissed, because on the re-record I think I've said things but I haven't, so I miss out on giving juicy information. So I think better done than perfect in terms of its presentation, because at least you remember to mention all the important bits. It's interesting, when we started this, the thing that really resonated between the two of us was just our kind of self-awareness journey throughout the entrepreneurial small business space. And one of the things we wanted to do within this podcast was have it around the self-awareness and systems and leadership and everything else that it takes to be a part of running your own business. And I feel like we do concentrate a lot on the self-awareness stuff, and that might be something that everyone's loving to bits. But you mentioned it earlier too, maybe we should be getting a couple of episodes in the bag that are just talking about the nuts and bolts of getting your business days done.
Well, I think the reason why we naturally get to the personal development and self-awareness part of it is because you and I are both very reflective, and it's part of being a coach and a consultant is kind of checking in, how are we going? And we do know that, well, do we know? I think I think that once you have mastered technical stuff, the hardest part of the business journey is the internal journey. It is the mindset journey. But I also do believe that the journey of technical knowledge is never finished. And so I do think that there is still opportunities to share our knowledge and our expertise, which we trust that the listeners actually learn from. So I think that we can actually balance that personal development, self-awareness, mindset stuff with more of the technical stuff. And so that's why we decided that today's podcast would be a bit more about planning, or talking about planning to help business owners actually do their own planning for the end of financial year, or start of the financial year. So I think that maybe just having that kind of awareness around the balance between the technical, so talking about the future, we want to sort of balance that, with the caveat, Julie, that I don't want us to lose the gold that we have, because the reason why Julie and I have decided not to do too much planning for each episode is that the reason we started it was because we just loved talking to each other and bouncing off each other and supporting each other and sharing our own experiences and journeys and ideas. And when we tried to take that organic approach away, we lost some of our spark. So part of our organic approach is part of what we enjoy and we hope comes through as the podcast comes out to you. So I guess, the balancing is just with the caveat that if doing the technical stuff doesn't bring out our gold, then let's not do it.
Yeah, that's it. I agree with you. I think as a small business owner as well, we've spoken so often in the past that we get busy just doing the general operations of the day. Everything seems urgent and important, and we tackle that sort of stuff, and the stuff that we can schedule to another day, the planning sessions, the contemplation, the creating better systems for your business, that can be put on the back burner a bit. And then all of a sudden 6 months go by and you say, have I started reaching my goals that I established 6 months ago? And you're like, no, there's just no time. And so I think wherever we can contribute guides, templates, you had your framework that you presented on change anything you want in your life starting right now. I think that was something to the effect of that, the title of it. Whatever we can supply in terms of putting a bit of structure around the things that we have to get done, I think that sort of thing would be quite helpful too. I know I certainly, I love putting together a good template, matrix, calculator.
You've got some fantastic templates and calculators. So I think that perhaps part of our planning is that we can talk to some of the tools and techniques that we use. And in fact, I was just chatting with a client. We're doing a strategic priority review, and I've got a handy little template that I use with another client, and it's not rocket science, but it's something that we use to kind of keep track of what are our priorities, how do we measure success, why is this a priority, why are we keeping on track on this, how do we manage the day-to-day that helps us achieve that strategic priority, and what are the things that we're working on, what projects are we working on in order to move the dial on those strategic priorities. So, that would be a discussion of a template that we could actually share and use and help people further in this podcast. So I think that utilizing some of our templates and things as tools could really help a lot of our listeners. So balancing those more technical skills
And we could then build, because we've got the website, practicingtheartofsmallbusiness.com. We've got that sitting there. It's got all the YouTube episodes there, all of the podcast episodes there. We'll be able to have a downloads page there and do the right thing. Make sure that whoever wants a download has to give us their email address. So we could develop a bit of a list, maybe a bit of a following, and then see where that takes us. We could be even more helpful. Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. So one of the things we talked about, Julie, when we started off was that the podcast would kind of be used as content for both of our individual businesses, because for those who are not familiar, my business is Inspired Outcomes Consulting, and I work independently, and Julie's business is Julie Parker Practice Success. Julie Parker Practice Success. How do you say that 10 times fast?
Julie Parker Practice Success, Julie Parker Practice Success, Julie Parker Practice Success. Need I go on?
Well, maybe I need to do it. I do find that sometimes I don't use my words properly, so it'd be more fun for me to say it, but I'm probably not going to, because I reckon I'm going to come up with something that's inappropriate. Anyway, Julie has Julie Parker Practice Success. I really want to record that many, many times. But anyway, And my business is Inspired Outcomes Consulting. And when we started the podcast, we did say that we were going to use it as a conduit of content for our individual businesses. So we would promote it on Inspired Outcomes Consulting or on my own personal pages, and Julie would do that as well. And we would use it as content for our businesses. But what you're suggesting, Julie, is that we move to a little bit more of a model where practicing the art of small business has its own lead gen tools and things like that. So then it's almost like we want to move to that Inspired Outcomes Consulting and Julie Parker practice success.
And guys, you're not in the dental industry, you wouldn't be able to recommend me to anybody.
It'd just be like success. But where, for example, as we start to build our list, there might be a newsletter that is the Practicing the Art of Small Business newsletter, and it would be content from Inspired Outcomes and Julie Parker Practice Success that then feeds content into that Practicing the Art as a interim step. Is that what we're sort of thinking? We'd still use Practicing the Art of Small Business on our socials and promote it from our business pages, but we also want to have a scenario where Practicing the Art is independent. Is that what we're starting to talk about?
What I'm saying is, and you know, we're kind of going back down that path that I take dental practices down, that over the years you start to evolve and organically move and wanting to appeal to a certain niche within your market. At the start of the dental practice, you want everyone coming in. And then as a few years go by, you think, oh, I don't really enjoy seeing these types of clients. You want these types of treatments in this kind of environment with this kind of service that's afforded them. And we're kind of doing that with the Practicing the Art of Small Business as well. I feel like you've got your niche market within Inspired Outcomes Consulting. I've got my niche market within the dental space and Julie Parker Practice Success, Julie Parker Practice Success, Julie Parker Practice Success. And Practicing the Art of Small Business will have its own market. And I am very satisfied that the content that we talk about within this podcast, even if it's not directly linking back to dental all the time, although, as you know, I try to do that as often as I can.
Through your Julie Parker Practice Success site.
That's it. It doesn't affect the amount of value that we have the potential to offer and that they have the potential to grasp at. Mm-hmm. You think about all the books, all of the podcasts, all the videos on YouTube that you absorbed in the formulation of your business. It didn't need to be just about coaching. Mm-hmm. I know for me, everything I've learned to date all affects the way I deal with my market right now. Mm-hmm. And as for dental practice owners who may be listening to this, it all ends up being relevant because it's business, even though there are different elements of business, different industries, business is business. There are, and as you said, there aren't any, there are no rules. There are some rules to business that really apply all the way around. Mm. But we may end up niching down the people that we are naturally attracting as listeners, and that niching down, if we ended up wanting to provide any additional support, such as business-to-business networking or business-to-business support when we're helping each other out online with sharing each other's posts and advertising and providing guides and all the rest of it. And so we could build out the idea of practicing the art of small business to a broader extent that would then niche it even further, that we want people on board who really actively want to start working on their small business and getting the people around them to support them and creating that really strong network. Not necessarily something I want to do.
I was about to say, Julie's creating a business plan for practicing the art of small business that isn't actually just the podcast.
I'm still super happy, Is plodding along a goal?
I think, do you know what? For me, plodding along is still a very happy goal for me. I think the goals for the next 6 months is for me. Well, for me, one of my goals is just to get the show notes done. This is something that our listeners would not be familiar with, the challenge, but I volunteered. Julie does everything in the podcast. I just turn up and show my pretty face.
It's enough, baby. It's enough.
It's enough. Julie does an amazing job of everything. And I said, look, Julie, it's only fair that I do the show notes and that sort of thing. And I have great intentions, but I haven't always followed through on that. So my main goal, other than plodding along, is to actually get into the routine of providing those show notes and actually adding more value to our listeners with show notes and making sure that we're linking to resources that we talk to and things like that. So that's absolutely a goal. I don't know if this this semester, 2 quarters, this half of the year,
Quadrant,
this quadrant,
quarter, this quarter.
No, but it's actually because it's a half of the year.
That's after this second quarter's gone by. We can say half year.
We're sorry, listeners.
We're breaking into the third quarter.
I think that for the next 6 months, I'm really comfortable to my preference would be to continue to do this and continue to enjoy the journey that you and I are on, and make sure that we continue to enjoy the journey. I think getting my own processes and routines happening so that I'm able to contribute more to the distribution of the podcast is something that I'd like to work on. And I think that once I've got my head in that space, I'll be more comfortable to go, well, what is the next step for practicing the art? Is it still just content for our websites, for our socials, for our own businesses? Or is there something further that we need to be considering next year as we're leveraging it more and more and we're seeing our numbers go up, which is actually exciting. We've been getting some really great viewing on YouTube. So if you haven't seen, we do have a YouTube channel, which is exciting. And our podcasts are actually increasing. So I think that as we develop and I'm contributing more meaningfully, I would like to see more numbers and then see what the reaction of the audience is, see what our customers of practicing the art of small business are looking for, so that we can then tailor a product, whatever that product might be, to them in the 2022 year perhaps. So my goals for this semester, this half of the year, is really to improve my own processes around the podcast and ensure and contribute more to find out what our customer is looking for. And then the next year is really, well, what's the next step? I just repeated what I said, but I needed to do that for my own benefit.
Repetition makes it lock it in the brain. Oh, it must have been important. She said it twice. I'm really sure about that.
Where does that sit with you, Julie?
Yeah, I'm very happy that I haven't identified any specific business model around it. So there's no sense of urgency around it for me. And I really like that journey of discovering it as I'm seeing and as we are both seeing the need for it, rather than imposing something that sounds like a good idea on the market. You know, it has to be. There was another great quote that I heard through the week, and your marketing should be driven by your market, not your brain. How good's that?
Yeah.
That was actually said by Michelle Fowson, who does a podcast with Susie Daphnis. Susie Daphnis runs Her Business Network. It's a magnificent organisation here in Australia. And that's a lovely example. Susie Daphnis has her own podcast with Her Business. And then she and Michelle Fowson do this other one, which is around content sells, and it's actually called Content Sells. Tremendous podcast if you wanted to jump onto it, anybody. Talking about content and emailing clients and, you know, doing things to engage your client base. Now, that serves the community of Susie's network, but it's not the whole focus of it. And I feel like that's what we're doing. what we do here in Practicing the Art of Small Business has the potential to serve the communities that we both have, which are quite separate, those two separate markets. But our separate businesses don't have the focus of practicing the art of small business as its core business. Does that make sense? And it's groovy and it works well.
Okay.
Something that you said, I think, is something that helpful that listeners can and viewers can take away with them this July, so they feel there's something useful to take away from this episode that they can apply themselves within their own businesses. And that was you saying, I'm going to shift my routine around to do the show notes or to do whatever. And I think that's a really lovely thing to contemplate. What has been my routine over the last few months? If you had set goals for yourselves in January, what part of your routine was helpful in achieving those goals or getting closer to them, and what part of your routine wasn't helpful? And working at modifying the things that you do on a routine basis through every week. So it is of higher importance and higher priority, higher urgency to actually achieve your goals. I know Charles talks about both outcome and process goals. So we've established those outcome goals in January, but then are we keeping to the process goals, the ways we are going to get to those outcome goals, the habits that we have, the routine that we have? Are we actually knocking the process goals on the head?
I do like a process goal myself. I suppose an example, a tangible example, is that my email got to a very bad stage and the outcome is to get to a zero inbox. So but I was never getting there, and it was driving me a little bit unhappy because there was never success. However, what I've now got is I have actually got in my diary, I started with two. It sounds like only a few. Now, for some people, this might sound very strange. I do look at my email more than twice a week, but I've actually got
I nearly spat my water out then. I thought you were going to say, nearly more than twice an hour, and she's gone, no, more than twice an hour.
But I wasn't clearing my inbox, and I wasn't always actioning the non-urgent emails, and then they would stack up, and then I would get overwhelmed with them, and then my inbox ends up at 1,200 emails. So what I started to do is I just put 2 days down in the week where I commit half an hour to clearing the inbox and getting through it and filing them away and responding and doing the things like that thing needs to go into the CRM, that thing needs a process, that thing needs to be saved, that thing needs to be registered for. Now I'm up to 3 days a week where I have my half an hour, and my inbox has gone from 1,200 down to, on Monday when I did it, it was around 370. So the process goal of just a half an hour every 3 days and achieving that is so much more satisfying than the outcome goal of a zero inbox, because I'm nowhere near a zero inbox. If you think that 300 is a lot, it is. Compared to 1,200, it's not.
Would you like to ask me, I've just checked while you were talking, would you like to ask me how many emails are in mine?
Don't tell me. I was feeling good about doing my half hour every 2 weeks.
68,500.
See, now I feel good.
Yeah, now you feel good.
I feel really good now. 68,000.
I don't understand a zero
inbox.
I don't understand the concept. My brother-in-law does it. My brother-in-law does it with text messages. The lovely Steve, I call him Bill, brother-in-law. Lovely Bill. He gets a text message, he deals with it, he dumps it, like he deletes it. Every email, he's always got zero inbox. It's amazing.
How do you
I am wildly opposite.
I'm literally speechless on the idea of deleting a text message. I don't think I can delete a text message. Like, morally, my brain doesn't. Also, how am I supposed to remember conversations not written down? How am I going to remember who's won the argument without it actually being evidenced in my text
You
message?
did so say that. Look, I've got the proof. So that just goes down the track of what Charles talks about. For those who don't know, Charles Covess, Australasia's passion provocateur and my magnificent husband, that we're all weirdos. And my brother-in-law, Steve, you and I have just exhibited that we are all wildly different just with our management of emails and all weirdos.
And all weirdos. I don't feel quite as bad now about my inability to write show notes.
I wouldn't either.
But sometimes, especially if you're a big picture thinker person, if you're a quite visionary and a big picture person, you probably don't get bogged down in these weeds. And I say that with all due respect to the people who get bogged down in weeds. Hands up, that's me. And for those who are visionary, you're probably not listening to this anyway, because I'm quite a detail. Well, you're quite visionary. You're a more big picture thinker. Very doer. You're a very doer. You don't get bogged down.
I don't know. I'm just me. I just like to be me.
And Julie's a weirdo.
It reminds me of that Loonig, I think it was Loonig cartoon, where there's a big huge herd of sheep, all these white fluffy sheep, and there's one little voice that comes up from the middle of the sheep. I gotta be me. I just gotta be me. So I don't know if I'm different from anybody else, but I feel like I'm completely and utterly unique.
Unique. Everyone's unique.
By the way, too, with your zero inbox, does that mean you just put them all into folders?
I file everything, yeah. Unless it's something that's very deletable, but everything else gets filed. Right. So it's really just that main inbox is that, something has happened to that and it's been actioned and it's been filed away. And
you do have a search function within your emails, yeah, that you could look for something if you wanted it.
What do you mean? Yeah, of course.
I think that's the reason why I don't use folders, because I'm like, well, I can find it anyway.
Oh, yeah, no. I don't. Google's search drives me a little bit bonkers, which
Gmail?
is Gmail, yeah. And Outlook is actually better for whatever. So I use Outlook and Gmail as an interface. I use both of them. Special. Very special. And I do search for things for sure. But I think there's just something like in my mind, if the inbox is empty, then I've dealt with it.
Yeah.
So
anyway. No, I can see the appeal of it for sure. I've tried to do it on a couple of occasions, but
you've got 68.
Very simply failed.
For those who actually have 68,000 emails in their inbox and want to start start the process of a zero inbox, getting down from 68,000 and filing away 68,000 emails is probably an ambitious task if you're doing it on your own.
Is that more than half an hour 3 times a week?
What was that?
Is that more than half an hour 3 times a week?
It might take you a little while to get through it. But what you could do, and this is something I've done on more than one occasion, I may admit, I've created a folder called Older Inbox.
You know what?
And then what you do is you move those 68,000 emails into the folder called Old Inbox, and then your inbox is at 0.
You know what? I think I can achieve this goal, Shannyn. I can achieve this goal. You've given me the process goal to get there.
There you go. Julie can achieve a 0 inbox and do a process goal with 68,000 emails in less than 10 minutes.
Oh, gosh, I'm even better than I thought before. I thought there was an area that I was falling down in, but it all depends on the process you use.
Now, Julie, we were going to be talking more about planning. I feel that this has got into the whole Shannyn therapy session about her inbox, which generally becomes what the podcast is a about discussion. But I think that the reflection part is a really good part of planning is what did we do? What did we do well? What could we do better? And I think that we've covered that off. I think what we did well is our rebrand was really good. I think that the way that we come organically into the podcast and we just allow our beautiful genius to bounce off each other. Oh, genii. Going back to English. Our geniuses to bounce off each other's. I'm really sorry.
This is impressive.
And I think that what else we've done well is we are starting to get a really good audience. What we're going to do better in the future is Shannon's going to commit to show notes and the process around that, building the routine around that so that our audience can grow even more. And I think that in the future we want to work on our customer scenario. So what does our customer want? Those who are listening to Practicing the Art. And this is a great opportunity for if you are a customer of Practicing the Art of Small Business by listening to this. We would love to hear what you like and what you don't like so that we can then start to provide you more of what you like and less of what you don't like, assuming it's what Julie and I want to do because, that's what's important.
Ultimate goal could be to irritate people, depends on what the goal is.
Sorry, not sorry. And with the plan, part of our plan is to plan for what Practicing the Art of Small Business might look like next year in 2022. But what other bits of planning should we be thinking about if we look at the wheel of business? Okay, so in the wheel of business, these are the spokes are kind of all the bits of your business that you want to think about when you are planning out. Mm-hmm. So let's, Julie, really quickly, because I know we're running out of time, in our wheel of business, in the middle is our strategy. And that's really, how we're competing. And I think that's an ongoing journey because we are talking more around that, this being content and still the plan at this stage. Where should we go next? Let's go to the systems and processes. So I think that you're very systems and process orientated. I think that what we can focus on over the next 6 months is in the systematizing of the bits that you do, certainly, Julie, all of the editing bits that you do and the process that you go through in terms of putting things up. I think business development and sales not really relevant for us, given that we're not selling anything at this stage. So we've sort of done that. Finance and risk. Well, we don't really have any risks other than offending people, and we apologize if we do. That's our disclaimer. That's done. Reporting, we tend to do reporting a little bit ad hoc in terms of our numbers and key performance indicators, but that's certainly something that Julie has flagged that she wants to do more of. And so that's actually on our list of things to do. It's on Shannon's list of things to do. So we want to actually start to track and measure what the podcast is doing, and with more show notes and more sharing, that's going to happen. Operations and delivery. So that's kind of the customer bit. Certainly on the operations side of things, I think that's the me kind of doing the show notes and things like that. Julie, what do you think needs to be added in operations and delivery from customer perspective?
Just optimizing, doing whatever we can. I mean, podcasts, it's so difficult to get a large audience jumping on board. And, even though we've been going for months now, we're still a relatively young audience, but just being aware of the way we promote it will possibly be a bit more powerful if we do it slightly different ways. But then those slightly different ways could actually take a whole lot more time as well. So it's that constant balance that when we're still in kind of hobby stage and not in business stage, it's not making any money itself, how much time do we want to devote to it? And we're both so thrilled with the amount of time that we're devoting to it at the moment. And so I think we just need maybe a little bit more of a little bit more growth before we spend too much extra time or indeed funds on making sure that we're hitting the mark when it comes to ideal way of promotion. Yeah.
I'm going to scoot over to product development. So that's something that we talked about at the start. At the moment, we don't really have product. Maybe next year, who knows? But I don't think we're going to focus on that over the next 6 months. It'll be really just developing our systems and processes, getting it out, promoting it. People and culture, really we're not hiring anyone. You and I have a great culture. We kind of foster it just by being awesome humans with each other. So I think that we're good on there. I don't think we need to set any goals there. Feel free to disagree.
No, I'm loving the culture. I'm loving the culture.
Super. Marketing, and I'm going to do a performance review for Julie in a month's time. She's going to do one for me in a month's time. That would, do you know what? That would actually kind of be fun to do it as a podcast. We could do performance reviews for each other.
Now, that's a great topic. That's a great topic. A lot of people struggle with performance reviews on both sides.
Marketing and comms. Let's spend a little bit of time here outside of our socials and the website, and using the show notes to push to our individual websites for content. There is an opportunity, I suppose, because right now our systems would be going, when you click on an asset from Practicing the Art of Small Business, that would go to your site or my site, depending on what the asset was. I think that we just make a determination that that's one of the things. Where did it come from? Or did it come from the podcast? And then that goes into a different sequence so that we can pull those out as people are interested. Is there other marketing that we want to do for the podcast specifically?
The methods of marketing could be stronger, but it would require a larger devotion of time. And at the moment, at hobby stage, we may not be in a position to do that right now.
Okay. And then you is us. And I normally when I do this, it's really about mindset of the business owner and how the business is fitting in with them. And part of this for me, Julie, is how much support you provide to me. So I'm really well supported. So I'm okay. How are you? And is there
Ditto, baby. I love it. It's amazing to me how many things that we discuss within our podcast episodes that I can then take back to my clients, and they'll raise up topics. I'm like, oh, I just spoke about this with Shannyn. How awesome. It's all on top of mind. I love this. But even just personally, I feel lucky because we're so much on the same page in terms of what we want to get out of life, what we want to get out of ourselves, the kind of impact that we want to have on the people around us, and the kind of work that we do as well. So I feel like I've got this ally, my buddy beside me, and it's a huge joy to have conversations where we're reflective together and bouncing ideas off each other, as you said earlier, and coming away with a greater awareness around things than if I'd gone through that myself. So thank you.
My pleasure. Well, I think that it's been a bit of a different episode today. It's been kind of fun and reflective. It's probably more about you and I than our audience. So sorry, audience. Do check out the Wheel of Business. We'll have it as a link.
Yeah, that's right. We can put it in as a download within the show notes. Also, within the show notes, there's going to be a link to our website, and we will create a page for listeners and viewers of the podcast to go to get constant access and on-demand access to any of the things that we create and generate and talk about on the podcast itself, so you can use it within your own businesses and modify them and tweak them in a way that's going to help you. If you need assistance with that, obviously contact either one of us, whichever one of us is the creator of that download, and we'll be thrilled to help you, even if you're not a dentist. But don't forget to give us 5-star reviews and loads of very positive testimonials as well. That would be much appreciated. And share it with your other small business entrepreneurial friends or people in management of people that may also find value from listening to this podcast.
Yeah. Also, if you don't have positive things, that's totally cool. We'd love to receive your feedback as well. So just send it to me, because Julie prefers positive reinforcement.
It's not as fun to read as the positive stuff.
Send the positive ones to Julie, send the negative ones to me. And
by email, she'll pop them in a folder called unimportant information. I'm only joking. All feedback is welcome.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Julie, it is such a pleasure. I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to work with you, and I really want to increase our audience so that they can get more of the Julie and Shannyn show. Maybe that's what we should have called this.
The Julie and Shannyn show. That's it. Maybe not have been SEO optimized, though. It doesn't have the word small business in it. Well, we will. We'll put some sort of goal of some sort of growth pattern in place for the next 6 months. You and I will do that in our downtime and come back together again and see if we come back with a similar idea.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Woohoo. Okay, we've got a plan already. We've got an outcome goal. Don't know the process yet.
That's okay. We'll get there. I'll do a spreadsheet. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's right. That's what Excel's for. Give us a line graph.
Wonderful.
Lovely, Shannyn. Have a beautiful week. I'll speak to you next week.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, listeners. Speak to you soon.